Meet me down at the old oak tree. Meet me there in the moon.
We've got a music.roanoke.com podcast today. We are talking with Kevin Costner, best known as an actor, but also the leader of a fine Americana band, bringing that band, Modern West, to Roanoke Performing Arts Theater for an April 16th performance. 3 albums deep into a band history that started years ago with a couple of friends studying to be actors. The latest music is famous for killing each other, music from and inspired by Hatfields and McCoys, which is a 3-part miniseries Costner starred in and produced and earned him a 2012 Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Miniseries or Movie. Album peaked at number 6 on Billboard's soundtrack list, and Costner co-wrote 8 of its 19 tracks. And I wanted to start out today. First, thanks for being with us. But second off, I wanted to talk about one of those songs, Oh Mally May, which features one of your children on the lead vocal. And boy, does she have a pretty voice. I can't imagine a person in any better position than you to give your child advice about life in the show business. And for all I know, she's not the only one who's pursuing it. I'm just curious, how deep into that do you get with your kids when it comes to advice or assistance?
Well, they're very stubborn about their artistry, and my son writes music, and my daughter Lily, who wrote Mally May. And she wrote it just based on seeing somebody. She was tending bar in Providence. My kids work. They really have never tried to pivot off my name, but she was tending bar in Providence,
Rhode Island.
Yeah, and she went to school, majored in music at Wesleyan. And somebody said, "Hey, Lily, look, your dad's up on TV." And so she watched the trailer for Hatfield and McCoy. She'd visited me in Romania where we were making it. You can go figure, you make this famous feud in Romania. But she'd come to visit me, and she saw the trailer, and it really sparked her. And she went home and got on the internet and watched that trailer 3 or 4 more times and wrote this song, Mally May, in a very a cappella kind of tradition. And it was just really about a little 8-year-old girl thought that she should change her name because she's certain she's not going to get into heaven if God knows she's a Hatfield or a McCoy. And I was just so impressed with it. But, you know, that song had to get over the bar. It was a concept record. And, listen, I write songs that don't make the set list. I write songs that don't get recorded. And same with the band members. And certainly my daughter, you know, she showed me this song, but I thought it fit in the scheme of that record really beautifully. And so they very rarely let me do anything for them. But, you know, I said, look, this really does fit, but I'm going to let the band decide, so I'm not jamming her down anybody's throat. But she sang it on the stage, the Grand Ole Opry, with me.
Saw the video of that. Really nice.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool moment.
I was curious if she has performed with you otherwise, if she's by chance on the tour or anything like that.
Yeah, she's going to open for me on this particular tour. I don't know what she's going to play. She's always a bit of a surprise. She really goes her own way. So, yeah, she's going to open, so she'll be on the buses, and we'll get to talk about a lot of things.
That's great. That's great. Now, I've read that your wife encouraged you to pursue this band with your old buddies John Coinman and Blair Forward, but you've also talked about how it's part of a need to connect with people in a more meaningful way than just the autograph. And I'm curious, do you feel that you've made that connection to this point?
Yeah, I feel like I have. I thought I would. I wasn't sure. I thought I would because, you know, whenever you actually are around somebody, if they're allowed to finish their sentence, finish their thought, you kind of know a little bit more. But sometimes the autograph, sometimes the taking of the picture takes precedent to an interaction. And so, you know, this, you know, being on stage for an hour and a half, 2 hours really gives me a chance to be around people and they get a chance to see me in a different way, and I'm not necessarily going to be interrupted.
Right. It's your set, completely different deal. Now, these guys that you're playing with go back with you a long time, a collaboration that I guess started back in acting classes, and you all started a band up called Roving Boy.
Yeah.
And I read this, and I got a kick out of it because, you know, not many people can say they went to number 1 in Japan, but you guys had a number 1 hit single in Japan, and that was a long time ago. And I guess you could have gone any way you wanted to, but obviously the acting took precedence. What was it, about this project that not only made made you want to sort of, hey, you're taking a lot of time to do this, obviously, but also to bring them on board? How important was that?
Well, back then, we didn't know what we were doing. That then somebody liked the song, and paid us an enormous amount of money for it. A reviewer really took me to task back then, and really was pretty awful to me. And I was enjoying my acting career. I was getting ready to direct, and I thought, do I really need this? Somebody deciding that actors can't do this, or this just really inane thing that seems to go around. But I actually backed down, to be honest, and it was one of the few times, maybe the only time I've ever done that in my career, and I really regretted it because it was uncalled for. It was just somebody being smart, but it affected me. And my wife found some of that early music, and she said, "Why don't you do this?" And I kind of hemmed and hawed about all of it, and kind of avoided it. And for 2 years, she kept after me to do it because she saw how much I enjoyed doing it. And finally, I said that I would, and she was really helpful to me. And I reached back to John and Blair, and I said, "Look, I'd like to just make music wherever I'm making movies. I want to do original music, and that's what I want to do." And I said, I have no plans above and beyond that. Do you want to do that? And they said, yeah. And then we drug in Teddy and Park and Larry, and we started playing. And 9 years later, it's not a vanity project with me. We get on the bus, we go, and we do what every band ever has to do, except I guess I don't have to do it. I enjoy playing music live, not wild about the bus, not wild about stumbling into my hotel room, but I'm a performer at my core. That's what I do, and there's no better way to test yourself than to play live.
And just listening to the music a good deal here over the past couple of days, it sort of fit, sort of what I saw the mini series as, but going back even farther, sort of the Americana aspect to it. Talk about sort of why that style. Is that just been all your favorite kind of stuff to listen to, or is that just the way the music came out when you were writing?
It's just the way the music comes out. I mean, I listen across the board. I like it when we put out a big wall of music. I also like it when it's just, with just acoustical. I like, and what we write about, sometimes it's age appropriate, sometimes it's not. Sometimes we look back at our life when we were younger, and sometimes we're looking ahead, and a lot of times we're just talking about the facts of life that go with getting older, the facts of life that go with falling in love, and how difficult that road is in maintaining a relationship.
And when you say we, you're talking about you and Coinman and Forward?
Well, all the band really writes. And
Uh-huh.
All I do is break the ties about what we will play and what we won't. And
Mm-hmm.
I never try to balance things. Somebody can submit 6 songs, and I can reject every one of them. I feel like the cream has to get to the top, and if a song comes really mature, I don't feel the need to tinker with it. But if it's not right, and I really feel it has possibilities, we'll dig in.
Now, for the purposes of this upcoming performance, you mentioned Teddy Morgan, Larry Cobb, Park Chisholm. Now there's like a trio of fiddle guys that you can choose from, and I was just curious whether it's Luke Bulla, Bobby Yang, or Roddy Chong who's going to be on.
No, Jason's coming. And
a quartet of fiddle players to choose from.
Yeah, and so that's always fun for us. And those guys are incredible, and they've all supported us beautifully, and like playing with the band. The great thing about all these guys is they've fronted their own bands, they've played for very established bands, and now they just get the pleasure of being on stage playing their own music with me.
Yeah, that's great. Now, wanted to talk about sort of the sort of circle in a way between the two careers that kind of fall together when you guys did your debut album, Untold Truths. You were able to perform at the Durham Bulls Athletic Park, the old baseball field. Well, I guess it was by then it was a new baseball field. It wasn't the old park, but I just thought that was really interesting. It kind of coincidentally happened around the 20th anniversary of Bull Durham. And talk about the feeling to be able to have those two things sort of fall together in the way they did.
Well, I tell you, just when you decide in your life what it is you want to do, you're always amazed at how things do fall together and where it takes you. You know, we played in the Kremlin last summer, and we played in South America. We played all over the world, and that was not on the chalkboard, okay, so to speak. I mean, I have the largest talent agency in the world, and I do not involve them in my music. We play where we want. I don't have a grand plan. There was no designs to ever be paid. There was no designs to ever make a record. It's just as people started to want to hear us more and more, they'd say, play that song again. We go, well, we're not playing it again. We just played it. And that's when we said, well, maybe we better record it.
Yeah.
So it's really evolved in an unpressured way, and I don't feel the pressure other than to try to deliver a really good performance with original material.
Yeah, you had mentioned before that part of it was you want to play music where you're making movies, and I guess obviously your career continues. You've got a movie, Draft Day, that's coming out, football vehicle, which I thought was funny. The premise of it that Cleveland Browns are making moves, because that's just been a horrible franchise. But maybe you'll be a good harbinger for them. Anyway, and recently you were playing Clark Kent's adoptive father in a Superman movie, and I'm just curious that continue to be the way it goes, where you're able to get the band out, to where you're doing movies and get some gigs going.
We do that, yeah. We're in France. We played out there, and when we were down, I just produced a movie down in New Orleans called Black and White, and we played 3 different places while I was making that movie. And then in this instance, this is a little 14-day dedicated tour that we just go out, and we're going to be presenting some new songs.
Cool. But you said not crazy about the bus, not crazy about going into the, stumbling into the motel or the hotel room. How do you feel about the studio? You enjoy it there?
Not really.
Yeah.
But that live is really the thing that I really enjoy.
Yeah. That is probably the most fun. I play a little bit, and that's so much more fun and less stressful than any of the other parts of it. Wanted to talk about baseball just for a second, because obviously, we discussed a bit about Bull Durham earlier, but Field of Dreams, For the Love of the Game, and well, The Upside of Anger is sort of baseball related, but a lot of baseball flicks that you've been involved with, and one might assume that you're a big baseball fan. I'm just curious, are you a big baseball fan?
I love playing baseball.
Yeah.
I'm not a fanatic, though. I watch it right now. When I was a kid, I watched it all. When I'm now I'll watch playoff baseball because I don't have time.
Yeah.
But I love football just as much, and basketball, and I kind of wait for the playoffs to roll around. I just I can't follow these people.
Right. Yeah, I find it gets much more difficult as you get older and have more stuff to do.
Yeah.
I want to play just a little goofy kind of free association. I rarely do this, but thinking about your career, a few things came to mind, and so I just wanted to throw some names out there and just get your first thoughts on them. Pa Kent.
Yeah. Well, I was asked to do that movie. It wasn't a role that I coveted. I even ever thought about, but. Zach came to me and said, "Look, I feel like, that this is right. I feel like it'd make a better movie for me." And he's such an artist. I thought, okay, I'll go do that. But I wasn't versed on Superman. I always thought it was a little goofy, the costume and stuff. I just did. But I went in and I tried my best.
Devil Ants Hatfield.
I really loved playing that role. I was so surprised that I was able to receive that award. It was just,
yeah.
I knew that I would front this project. It hadn't been made in about 25 years, and the guy tried to make it, and I said I would, and so I feel good about helping that find the light of day. But I did feel like we drew a really nice movie about America's Great Feud.
Here's one. I'm going to combine these two because thinking about it, I realized that Crash Davis thought that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, and Jim Garrison thought that there was all kinds of things going on.
Well, that just goes to show the character you're playing. It's it's like you grew up in Cleveland, you're a Cleveland fan. You grow up somewhere else, you're that fan. It's like in those movies, what I I was supposed to say, I said with conviction.
Indeed, indeed. A couple more of these.
We've got just about a minute.
Okay.
Tad.
Actually, then we'll skip one last thing. Now, this is something I've read, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but I understand that when you weren't sure what you really wanted to do, I mean, you thought you might want to be an actor, but you were flying like in your honeymoon, and you met Richard Burton,
right.
which doesn't happen, and he advised you to do what you wanted if acting was what you wanted. So not everybody gets that sort of opportunity. Of course, Burton's dead now, but so let's say you're on a plane and the people reading this or listening to this are sitting next to you, knowing what you know of your life and career to this date. What would you tell them?
Well, I would try to be sympathetic to it, and I have it. A lot of people have asked me that question, and I just think that do you have an absolute love of the idea of it, or do you are you in love with the idea of fame? Because if you're in love with the idea of fame, that's a whole different direction for you. If you're in love with the idea of being an actor, of being able to sing, of doing that things, then you'll find a way to do it. If the only reason you want to do it is because you want to get famous, well, I'm sure some people have done that. But I think if you start with a genuine love and appreciation and respect of what it is you're about to do, you'll understand that, one, it's hard. You'll understand that, two, that maybe you don't get there. But you will be doing one of the few things that people do in America, which is really making sure that you're trying to do something that you love. So if you have those feelings, if you can answer those questions, then there's no reason, because there's going to be everybody in the world to tell you shouldn't do it. So you have to be prepared to live with all the things that will come with that, which sometimes means that you won't be wealthy. Doing what you want to do in America sometimes means you're not going to make a lot of money, but you will be doing what you want to do. And so, I think you try to figure out what pleases your soul. And while you try to do that, make sure you know how to go work and have a second job.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Kevin. I wish you safe travels and enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. To my father, fare thee well to my mother, fare thee well, sisters, brothers.